Hi, I'm Peter Charles, and welcome to my beginner's fly tying series of videos. Today we're going to tie the woolly bugger. Pretty well anybody who's fly fished has fished a woolly bugger. They're one of the most common flies out there. Very, very easy to tie, and it's not an elegant pattern. You can just bash them together and they'll still catch fish. In fact, sometimes I think the more ragged the fly, the better it is. Today I'm going to show you how to tie this fly quite quickly. It's a simple pattern and we can knock it together quickly, and it's a great way to fill your fly box in a hurry. The techniques I'm using are not very difficult, and today you'll have a chance to see how to palmer a hackle feather, how to use wire, how to use chenille. So it's a good opportunity to learn a number of techniques. So before we get into the tying, let's take a look at our materials. Our tail is going to be made out of some olive marabou feather. Our hackle is olive dyed grizzly. Now this is not the high grade hackle that I'm using here. It's cheap stuff, and that's all you really need to tie woolly buggers. Don't go out and spend a lot of money on some expensive dry fly saddle hackle for this job. Our thread is uni thread olive in a 6/0. Our wire is green in a medium, and it's called a soft wire. You can use pretty well any wire you like, gold, silver, red. Today I'm just going to use green because I happen to like it, but you can use anything else. And our body is green chenille. Let's start by selecting our material. I'm going to try to find a feather here that has nice clean barbs, a nice shape to it. And there we go. There's a good one right there. I'm just going to come in with my scissors and I'm going to pick it out. And then you see it has some webby barbs at the bottom. I'm just going to peel those off, leaving a bit of a stem there, and that's what we're going to use to tie it in. Okay, now we get into our saddle hackle here. I've picked out a feather. I'm going to pull that out. And as you can see, it's full of this webby stuff here, so I'm going to strip that off. As you can see, I've pulled all the fuzzy stuff off and I've trimmed it, just leaving a little bit of stem for us to work with. Okay, let's start by tying on our thread. If you've not done this before, here's the correct procedure. You bring your thread in front of the hook, you wind away from yourself, then you cross over the thread, trapping that tag end. Now I can cut the tag end off and my thread is locked in place. The next step is to tie in the tail. Now when you're tying a fly, one of the first things that people have problems with is what to put on first, in what order. And in this case, the tail is the item closest to the hook, so it should go on first. Now I'll just bring that over, and I'm going to use a pinch loop, and you can see I've pinched the thread between my fingers and I've pulled down then up. I'll do that again. Pull down and up. And a couple more wraps. The reason why we do that is to make sure that the material stays on top of the hook. It doesn't spin around the hook shank. If you were to just wind like this, it would spin. Now I'll take a moment to adjust it. That looks good. I'll put in a couple more wraps to secure it. Now I can trim off that little bit of stem there. Good. Now we're going to be winding three things on the hook. We're going to be winding some wire, some hackle, and some chenille. And the rule for this is the thing that gets wound last gets tied on first, which in this case is the wire. Now when working with wire, it's important not to use your good scissors to cut wire. You'll dull them, you'll ruin them. So if you've gone out and spent a lot of money on scissors, the last thing you should do is use it to cut wire. So what I do is I use a pair of snips, or you could use a pair of old scissors. Now here's a neat little trick. To tie this on properly, we come in with our wire in front of the thread. We'll bring it up behind and over the top. And as you can see, it'll sit there by itself. It's trapped in place just by that one wrap. I'll put in an extra one here, and then I'll just start to pull. And I'll get the end of it out of the way. And you can see the end is right here. It's out of the way of the eye of the hook. I'll just clean that up. Now the next thing that goes on is our hackle. And here's the hackle feather I pulled off that cape a moment ago. And you can see I've cleaned off a bit of the stem here. you'll see when you're looking at these, you have these nice firm clear barbs, and the other end is quite webby and thick, and I've pulled all that webby stuff off because we're not going to use it. Now this end I'm going to grab the tip and I'm going to stroke away, and I'm going to create that little point, and I'm going to come in here and cut it off, and that creates a little triangle, and that's what I'm going to use to tie this in. And again, I use a pinch loop. Clean that up. Okay, the last thing to go in is our chenille. Now I'm going to show you a little trick with chenille. It's not important for this fly because it's a bulky fly, but often we want our chenille to look neat. So for our tie-in point, we just come in and get our fingernails and pull off a bit of the chenille, exposing the core, this black core. And then I can just use a pinch loop on that, and we have a nice tie-in point. Okay. Our next step is to wrap this all back, and this is the speed part of this. Since all items are tied in together, we just hold them and stroke them back, keeping everything on top of the hook. You can see the angle I'm holding this at. And I just work this back into the point where the shank begins to curve, and then I'll just work that forward. There we go. Now you see these spiky bits down here. Don't worry about them. They're going to be covered up by the chenille, and if they're not covered up by the chenille, it doesn't matter. So we're going to start next by winding on our chenille, the thing we tied on just a moment ago. And when we make these turns, we want them to be one right beside the other, hard up against the other turn. Just keep coming around. Just advance it. Keep them very close together. You don't want any gaps showing. You want the body to look even. And when you get to this point here, you'll just tie it off. Keep it under the hook. And just come in with the point of your scissors. Now you notice what I'm doing with my finger here? I'm pushing my thread away. And the reason why I'm doing that is I don't want to cut my thread off when I do this. There we go. Very easy to cut your thread off. I'll clean that up. Now the next thing we're going to tie in is our hackle, and we're going to do what's called palmering. What palmering means is we wound it starting from the back, and we wind it forward. I'm stroking the tail out of the way. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use something called hackle pliers. There we go. And it enables me to keep a grip on this hackle as I turn it. I put one turn right at the tail, and then I'm going to angle forward. We try and do this neatly. And the last thing I'm going to do is tie this in as a collar. This last bit here, and stroke these barbs back as I tie this. You want them pointing back, not forward. You'll get some pointing forward. It's hard to avoid that. And wind it down until you get to the bare quill. Now wind that quill up underneath the hook as before. You should be able to just break it off. And if it doesn't break off, like that one didn't, just come in with the point of your scissors. Now if you have any strays, you can pick them off with your fingers, or alternately you can just brush this back and just make a few loops. There we go. Now the last thing we're going to do is wind on our wire, and we're going to do something called counterwind. And what that means is we're going to wind in the opposite direction. And when we do that, it crosses the quill in this fashion. And that helps to protect the quill, and the teeth of the fish won't pull it apart. It's very common, if you don't use wire on a woolly bugger, for you to have the hackle come undone after a few fish. The wire keeps the hackle in place. So we're going to wind it, instead of winding away from us, we're going to wind it towards us. We start with a wind right back of the tail and keep it nice and tight, and you can see how that is puffed up the tail quite nicely. Now as you wind, wiggle it, and what that does is it avoids trapping barbs. And if you do trap a barb like I just did there, you just sort of try again, wiggle away, wiggle, 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 and you can wind the wire on without squishing those barbs down. And then we'll just put a wrap there at the front end, and we're going to tie that off. And just keep the wire underneath the hook and just wind it forward. Now at this stage some people get lucky and they can, what they call helicopter it off by twisting the wire. Never seems to work for me. So I'm going to come in here with my snips, and now there's a little bit sticking up. I'm just going to take my fingernail, fold that down, and good. Now we're ready to finish off our fly. I'm going to take some of those stray barbs and try and pick them off. I'm just going to wind the head, try and make it look neat. Put a few wraps at the back to get sort of a nice smooth flow to that. Now the last thing we're going to do is something called whip finishing. It looks a little intimidating, but actually it's quite simple. We take our whip finish tool, we lay it on top of the thread, we hook the thread with the hook at the end. Then you see there's a dent at the bottom. We're going to put it into the dent, and we're going to cross it. And you see there's a cross. This is on top. And then we're just going to go around. Usually 3 times is enough. Slip the dent out, pull nice and smoothly, pull the hook out. There we go. Now we're just going to come in with our scissors, cut that off. And the last step is a little bit of head cement. Now I've got a few stray bits sticking up there, so I will use this opportunity, that water-based head cement, to stick those down. The final step before we go fishing is to put a little bit of gloss head cement, make it look nice, make it a little bit more durable, and then we're ready to go fishing. We just come in with our bodkin, take a little dollop of cement, and put that on. You could use just this instead of the water base, but I like to start with a water base to begin with, because it tends to seal the threads. And then this just sits on top and looks nice. There we go. We have a nice neat head, and we have a woolly bugger ready to go fishing. Again, not a pretty fly. I've done this quick and easy. It's a very simple technique. Doesn't produce the prettiest looking thing, but that's not the point. Woolly buggers work no matter whether they look pretty or look ragged. As I said earlier, sometimes the more ragged the better. Anyway, get out there fishing with them. You can catch bass, you can catch trout, pike, walleye, goodness knows what else I've caught with them. Oh, carp, sheephead. It's amazing. You can catch loads of species with this fly. So enjoy.